All right, let's talk about one of the most important and honestly most tested parts of AWS, EC2. Look, if you're getting into the cloud, you can't just kind of know EC2. You have to really know it. It's the foundation for so much. So we're going to break it all down. And hey, if you're studying for the AWS Cloud Practitioner exam right now, then you have come to the perfect place. We've designed this whole thing with you in mind.
Because, let's be real, you are going to see EC2 questions on that test. It's a guarantee. So today, we're going to cut right to the chase and focus on the absolute must-know concepts that will help you walk into that exam feeling confident. So let's dive in.
Okay, first things first, we have to start at square one. What even is an EC2 instance?
AWS themselves keep it super simple. An EC2 instance is just a virtual server in the AWS cloud. That's really it. The best way to think about it? It's like having your own computer, but instead of sitting on your desk, it's living inside one of Amazon's gigantic data centers somewhere in the world.
But here's the thing. An instance is more than just a server. It's the whole package. It all starts with something called an AMI, an Amazon Machine Image. Just think of that as the blueprint. You know, the operating system and any software you want pre-installed. Then you've got your storage. You can have persistent EBS volumes, that's the stuff that sticks around even if you turn the instance off, or temporary instance store for, like, scratch paper. You get a secure key pair to log in, and this is the big one for today. You choose an instance type. That defines the actual virtual hardware.
And that last point, choosing your instance type, is absolutely critical. This is where you decide what kind of virtual hardware you need, and you can bet the exam is going to ask you about this. So let's figure out how to pick the right tool for the right job.
Honestly, the easiest way to wrap your head around this is to think about vehicles, right? You wouldn't use a Ferrari to haul a bunch of 2x4s, and you wouldn't use a giant semi-truck to commute to the office. AWS instance families are exactly the same idea. Each one is built for a very specific job. Okay, this slide right here, this is exam gold. You really need to know this. Just think in keywords. If an exam question mentions a web server or a small database, your brain should immediately go to general purpose, the M and T families. If you hear batch processing or scientific modeling, that's a job for a compute-optimized C instance. It's the race car of the bunch. See a question about in-memory databases or big data analytics? You should be thinking memory optimized, so R, X, or Z types. The whole game is just matching the workload to the right family. And the cool thing is, you don't have to memorize a million different instance names. You just have to learn how to read the code. Take T3A.large, for example. The T tells you the family, general purpose. The 3 is the generation. And trust me, newer is almost always better. The A tells you it's an AMD processor. And large is just the size. See? It's not random letters and numbers. It's a system. And now you know how to read it.
All right, so you've picked your virtual car. Now, how are you going to pay for it? Choosing the right payment model is just as important as choosing the right tech, especially for the exam. Let's talk about how to pay for this stuff smartly.
So there are 3 main purchasing options you absolutely must know. First, you've got on-demand. That's for your unpredictable stuff where you can't make a commitment. Then there are savings plans and reserved instances, or RIs, which are perfect for steady long-term workloads where you can commit for 1 or 3 years. And finally, you have spot instances for jobs that can be interrupted, and these give you the absolute biggest savings. Your job on the exam is to read a scenario and pick the right one.
So let's look at on-demand. The key words here are flexibility and reliability. You pay by the second for exactly what you use. The price is set, and it's your go-to when you have a spiky, short-term job where you absolutely positively cannot have that server just vanish on you.
But if you have a workload that's predictable, something that's just humming along 24/7, paying on-demand prices is just throwing money away. If you can commit to using it for 1 or 3 years with a savings plan or a reserved instance, you can cut your bill by up to 72%. I mean, that is a huge discount just for making a commitment you were probably going to make anyway.
Now, this is a super important point that trips a lot of people up. A reserved instance is not a physical server that AWS sets aside for you. It's really just a billing discount, a coupon. You launch a totally normal on-demand instance, and if it matches the specs of your reservation, boom, AWS automatically applies that discount to your bill. It's a coupon, not a box. Okay, so you thought 72% was good? How about savings of up to 90%? And no, that is not a typo. Spot instances let you bid on spare, unused EC2 capacity in the AWS cloud. The price is incredible,
But, of course, there's a pretty big catch. And here is that catch. This is the trade-off. Because you're using spare capacity, AWS can take it back whenever they need it, and they only have to give you a 2-minute warning. So Spot is absolutely perfect for what we call fault-tolerant jobs. Things like batch processing, rendering, big data analysis, stuff that can be stopped and restarted without creating a catastrophe. But please, never, ever, ever run your critical production database on a Spot instance. Okay, let's make sure all of this sticks. We're going to do a quick fire round with a few scenarios, just like the kind of questions you're going to see on the Cloud Practitioner exam. You ready?
First one, you've got a workload, it's short-term, it's unpredictable, and the most important part, it cannot be interrupted. What are you going to choose?
Yep, you got it. It has to be on demand. You need that pay-as-you-go flexibility, but more importantly, you need the guarantee that you're the one in control of when it starts and stops.
All right, next up. Picture a database. It's predictable, totally steady, and you know for a fact it's going to be running 24/7 for the next 3 years. How do you get the best possible price? That's an easy one, right? You lock in those savings with a commitment. A 3-year savings plan or a reserved instance is going to give you the absolute best price for that kind of predictable long-term use.
And for the last one, you're running a huge data analysis job. Now listen for the keyword here. It's fault-tolerant, which means if one server goes down, the job can just pick up where it left off. What's the absolute cheapest way to get this done?
You nailed it. Spot instances. That keyword, fault-tolerant, was the dead giveaway. Since you can handle interruptions, you can cash in on those massive, up to 90% discounts.
And that's really what it all comes down to, isn't it? It's always this balancing act between cost, performance, and flexibility. Now you know the rules of the game. You have the tools to make the smart choice for any scenario that gets thrown at you, not just to pass your exam, but to build amazing, cost-effective things in the real world. So the only real question left is, on your next project, how are you going to strike that balance?